Chapter 68 Law and the Last Judgment. Law is the expression of one aspect of God's being and nature, his righteousness or justice. The law is necessary, among other things, for the understanding of God. Without the revelation of his law, we would not know the nature of the biblical God. Then, too, the fact of sin necessitates law. Law helps us to define sin. The Ten Commandments tell us what sin is and therefore what righteousness or justice is. Even humanists must have law or something resembling it. They may insist that man is naturally good, but because he is, quote, antisocial, end quote, either because of civilization after Rousseau or capitalism, according to Marx, he must be judged and punished. These humanistic substitutes for God's law are far more severe in their penalties than is God's law. The horrors of the French Revolution with its reign of terror and the Russian Revolution and its Soviet regime with its many, many millions of victims witness to this. Marxism replaced law with regulation and psychiatric, quote, evaluations, end quote, in terror, but these were only evasions of the idea of law. Within Christendom, as Harold J. Berman has shown in Law and Revolution, law is related to atonement. The penalty for sin is death. Atonement requires as restitution the death penalty which Christ assumes for us. Men are redeemed from God's death penalty by Christ's death. In crimes one against the other, men must pay either the death penalty or some kind of monetary or substantial restitution. God's law has as basic to it the fact of restitution. Humanistic law has self-salvation as its basic ingredient. The prison cell, like the monastic cell, was supposed to be a place of contemplation and separation, wherein the criminal, by his meditation and his, quote, inner light, end quote, saved himself. It has not been a success. Meanwhile, the religious antinomianism has eroded the idea of law. Eschatology is still a major aspect of evangelical faith, but a strange development has occurred. The second coming of Jesus Christ has been separated from the Last Judgment. At one time, the Last Judgment was prominent in Roman Catholic and Protestant theology. Now it is only the second coming which is stressed. The second coming and the Last Judgment were once inseparable. Christ returned in all his glory as the great judge over all men and nations, but how can there be a last judgment and a final and absolute court if there is no law? Eschatology has now been personalized. The evangelical believer sees it as his escape from death. From a world triumph of justice, it has been reduced to a personal escape from an evil world. This is an amazing degradation of biblical faith, a reprehensible perversion of Christianity. If there is no law, there is no judgment, no justice. The, quote, prophecy conferences, end quote, so common to American evangelicalism are simply extravagant expressions of an antinomian and mystical religion. Men like Hal Lindsey, whose religion is simply antinomian eschatology, pander to this escapism. Extremists in this antinomianism will argue against the use of or the repetition of the Ten Commandments as evil and a mark of another dispensation. This is a curious view. If a God-given moral law is good in one dispensation, why is it not good in all, since God never changes? Malachi 3:6. The puerile idea of God common to such thinking is staggering. Such man-centered eschatologies are accursed because they turn the moral universe upside down. The same can be said of any theology that does so. Biblical religion is God-centered, not man-centered, and every departure from this is evil. It is not the salvation of man's soul that is basic to biblical faith, important though that is, but the kingdom of God and his righteousness or justice. Matthew 6:33. To separate the God of Scripture from his law is to separate oneself from God, because such a lawless God is not the living God of biblical revelation. God's revelation through Isaiah still stands. Quote, "To the law and to the testimony, if they speak not according to this word, it is because there is no light in them." Isaiah 8:20. Light here means morning light or dawn. Quote, "No light in them," end quote, means figuratively no knowledge. It signifies no future. To deny God's law can thus mean a denial of a future to oneself. Such people should be in fear of the Last Judgment. They can be raptured into hell. A man-centered faith is a fearful thing.